Joining us now, member of the House Oversight and Intelligence Committee's Democratic Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi of Illinois. Thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Good morning, Nika.
I look at the president at this point at these rallies and through people on Fox News, so focused on the whistleblower, potentially revealing who he is, and they put he in caps and all that. And at this point, is the whistleblower really necessary to the mountain of evidence that seems to be building up here? And what would the strategy be to threaten the whistleblower at this point?
I don't think the whistleblower is essential at this point. It's akin to trying to identify who pulled the fire alarm at the time that we're trying to battle the smoke and flames. There's plenty of evidence from firsthand accounts with regard to this alleged scheme to basically condition aid to the Ukraine, as well as a White House meeting based on whether they were going to investigate Donald Trump's political rivals here in the U.S. And as far as identifying the whistleblower, I think really what's going on here is an attempt to identify this person and then to potentially retaliate against that person. Of course, that would harm the whistleblower, but it would also create a chilling effect with regard to anyone else who would want to come forward with evidence of wrongdoing. And I think that's intended. I think the president is saying all these things against the whistleblower in part to brush back anyone else who might come forward with evidence of wrongdoing.
Hey, Congressman, it's Willie Geist. It's good to see you this morning. We're getting these transcripts.
Hey, good morning.
We'll get more transcripts out this morning from Ambassador Sondland and others. What is the picture you've seen as someone who has sat in on these depositions, on these interviews where Republicans and Democrats have both had a chance to ask their questions? What is the picture when you put it all together that you've seen? Because it seems from the outside pretty clear what took place here based on witness testimony. So I guess my question would be, have you had a witness before you that gave you pause and said, oh, maybe this didn't happen the way it appears to be? There was one witness who said they were on the phone call. He was on the phone call, heard what he thought was a quid pro quo, but he didn't deem it illegal. Was there anyone who has sort of crossed your understanding of what exactly happened here?
Not so far, although I'm open to hearing from anybody at this point, whether they have evidence or testimony that would support or run counter to the claims against the president. I'll just point out two things about the witnesses that have come so far. They are largely career public servants. They are apolitical. And they basically stick their necks on the line and their careers on the line to come and testify before us. And they often do so at personal expense, hiring their own lawyers to come forward. They are very compelling, and I can't wait for the American public to see them for themselves. The other aspect of this is that I hear testimony over and over again about this, basically this arrangement with regard to conditioning White House meetings as well as aid to the Ukraine on a public investigation of the president's domestic political rivals, which is extremely disturbing, to say the least.
John Hellman.
Congressman, let me ask you this. Before, this is going to sound like a process thing, but I think it's important in terms of the politics. For a little while, we were hearing that the Speaker and House Democrats wanted to basically have articles of impeachment done and dusted, voted on by Thanksgiving, so that the Senate could have its trial in December. So this could all be done before 2020 and the election year and getting to the point where the Iowa caucuses are right on the horizon. It seems like now that schedule is slipping somewhat. So can you talk a little bit about what you expect to unfold just as a matter of timing over the course, in the House at least, over the course of the weeks that were, as the public hearings and then moving to the votes?
Honestly, I don't know the calendar. No specific dates have been set for instance, the public hearings or anything else, at least to my knowledge. That being said, I really don't think that we should condition our hearings based on any kind of presidential political calendar. I understand that those primaries and caucuses are happening, but we have to do our duty in a way that's fair and that accords with the solemnity of these proceedings. All that being said, I think we have to expeditiously do this, if for no other reason than that there's an ongoing alleged scheme in the White House to conduct our foreign policy in a way that is potentially very illegal and unconstitutional potentially. And so we just got to put a stop to it and hold everyone who's involved with it accountable.
Mike.
Congressman, could you provide a little clarity on the depositions themselves? Various members of Congress, like Jim Jordan and even the President of the United States, has indicated that, oh, they're doctored, they've been added to, they've been this, they've been that. Who is transcribing them? Is it a person hired by the Democrats, hired by the Republicans? What's the mechanical process of the depositions?
These are taken by stenographers who are folks that are basically professionals and hired by the Congress, the House of Representatives, to take down what they hear. And, you know, basically, I have not yet heard anybody say specifically that, oh, this particular sentence was not recorded properly or anything like that. I think, again, it's an attempt to deflect basically attention from the substance of the allegations, and I think that unfortunately is happening way too much with regard to the process. You know, more than 40 Republicans have had access to these proceedings, have questioned the witnesses, have had equal time to do so, have made opening statements. If you just look at the transcripts, you'll see that for yourself.
Elise.
Congressman, if Trump officials, both former and current, continue to assert executive privilege and they want to tie this up legally in courts, that does mean a more protracted timeline that inevitably does hit in the middle of a political cycle. Are Democrats looking at perhaps getting a little tougher on you exercising your power as a co-equal branch of government and using the sergeant-at-arms to compel more officials to testify?
I don't know about that specific remedy, but what I do know is that yesterday Chairman Schiff said that we're not going to delay our proceedings based on certain witnesses not testifying. Just as an example, I think that 4 witnesses yesterday were subpoenaed, and the White House basically blocked their testimony. I think partly because those folks are likely to provide testimony that corroborates the claims against the president. And so I think we're going to treat those that blocked testimony accordingly, that it raises the inference that they would support the claims, and that their behavior not coming yesterday would play into a potential claim of obstruction of the inquiry.
All right, Congressman, at this point, Jonathan Lemire has the next question. Jonathan?
Congressman, thanks for being on. There's been a lot of anticipation and speculation about the possible appearance of former National Security Advisor John Bolton. Can you give us an update on where that stands? I believe he's been scheduled for later this week. Do you have any sense whether he'll appear voluntarily, or will you, with a subpoena, compel him to testify?
I specifically don't know about Mr. Bolton's status. That being said, multiple witnesses from the National Security Council talked about John Bolton. As you saw from the opening statements, they said that he basically considered this alleged deal, namely conditioning aid to the Ukraine based on investigations into the president's political rivals, as being illicit, that he called it a quote-unquote drug deal and so forth. So I think that I hope that he would come forward and testify. Obviously, he could really educate members of the committee as to exactly what was happening and his concerns about what he called a drug deal.
Congressman Raja Krishnamoorthi, thank you very much for being on the show this morning. We'll see what happens.
Thank you so much, Mika.